politician who seeks to avoid the taxes they owe in this country is not fit to be in charge of taxpayer money.
Deputy Prime Minister, you've been accused of dodging a £40,000 tax bill on your new home on the South Coast.
There is additional tax owing on this.
Every pound of tax that's not delivered to the Chancellor and to the Exchequer means that it damages our public services.
There is additional.
The Angela Rayner mystery, plotting her return from an £800,000 scandal. Before we dive into this absolutely riveting tale of political intrigue, do make sure you're subscribed to UK Connors, because what's unfolding in British politics right now is nothing short of extraordinary, and you won't want to miss a single development. Right, let's get into it. Where on oath is Angela Rayner? It's the question that's been ricocheting around Westminster like a rogue champagne cork at a Tory fundraiser, and the answer, as it turns out, is rather more intriguing than anyone might have anticipated. The former Deputy Prime Minister, who resigned in spectacular fashion just a month ago over an unpaid stamp duty scandal, hasn't exactly been keeping a low profile in the traditional sense. No, she's been holed up in the very flat that caused her downfall, an £800,000 seaside property in Hove, and if you think she's simply licking her wounds, you'd be sorely mistaken. Angela Rayner doesn't do quiet exits, and what's emerging from the Sussex coast suggests her absence from the political stage might be far more temporary than her enemies would hope. The contrast is almost Shakespearean in its drama. Just weeks ago, Rayner was at the pinnacle of power, living in Admiralty House, Winston Churchill former Whitehall residence, commanding a salary of £161,409 and wielding influence that made property developers and lobbyists queue at her door. Now she's back on the backbenches, her income slashed to £93,904, facing a bill of over £50,000 to HMRC for that pesky stamp duty dodge, complete with interest and penalties for what they are diplomatically calling careless behavior. The mathematics of her new reality are rather sobering, mortgage repayments potentially hitting £4,000 a month against a take-home of £5,400. It's not exactly the financial position one would choose when plotting a political resurrection, yet here's the fascinating bit. She has absolutely no intention of selling that whole flat. None whatsoever. According to sources close to Rayner, she desperately wants to keep the property. She loves it. It could be where her life is after politics, they say, which is either admirably optimistic or delightfully defiant, depending on your perspective. And there's evidence to support her commitment to staying put. Carpenters have been spotted carrying kitchen worktops through the entrance, sanding and sawing away on her terrace, men taking measurements for new blinds or French doors. These aren't the actions of someone preparing to cut and run. These are the actions of someone settling in, making the place properly haze, someone who sees a future in Sussex that extends well beyond this current unpleasantness. Her boyfriend, Sam Terry, the former Labour MP turned lobbyist who lost his Ilford South seat in last year's election, has been splitting his time between Brighton, where his young children live with his ex-wife, and a whole flat where he's joined Rayner in what neighbours describe as a rather subdued existence compared to her initial arrival. Remember that? The much-publicized beach appearance in a camo pink dry robe, sipping chilled wine on the pebbles, vaping in a kayak like some sort of rebellious counsellor on holiday. That jolly summer by the sea has transformed into an overcast autumn, metaphorically and quite literally, with Rayner venturing out only occasionally, usually in a BMW driven by a protection officer, leaving early and returning under cover of darkness. The protection detail itself is rather interesting. She is apparently still entitled to security from a specialist Met unit, locals believe, because a Victorian mansion block containing her flat, along with construction chipboard across the road, were daubed with rather uncharitable graffiti. Tax evader, they wrote, which was subsequently removed by council workmen, prompting complaints from some neighbours that Rayner received special treatment. Though it must be said, the cleanup was reportedly paid for by a member of the public, almost certainly Rayner herself, which rather deflates that particular conspiracy theory. But here's where the story becomes absolutely electric. Despite her physical absence from the Labour conference in Liverpool last week, after being spotted in her Manchester constituency, Angela Rayner's presence loomed larger than most people actually in attendance. Speaker after speaker name-checked her. The audience erupted in rapturous applause at the mere mention of her name, and with Streeting, the health secretary, declared, "We need her back," in what appeared to be an ad-lib moment, not cleared by number 10. Downing Street scrambled afterwards to assure everyone that the Prime Minister would have approved, which is political speak for, "We've been caught off guard, but we're pretending we haven't." Sir Keir Starmer himself told LBC Radio that Rayner will continue to be a major voice in British politics, hinting she could return to frontline politics sooner rather than later. Extraordinary, really, considering she was forced to resign for breaking the ministerial code by failing to maintain the highest standards of proper conduct. Someone who attended the conference put it rather perfectly. She was the most talked about person in the bars, apart from Nigel Farage, which is saying something considering how much time Labour devoted to demonising the Reform UK leader. Enemy of Britain, snake oil salesman, racist immigration policies. They threw everything at Farage, yet Rayner still dominated the gossip. The consensus among those who were there? She's plotting. Of course she's plotting. Her people are plotting. There are many within Labour who desperately want her to be plotting, and the show of support she received in absentia has only emboldened that faction. Now, the mechanics of a potential comeback are where this becomes properly fascinating. Sources suggest it will begin with a mea culpa interview on television, conducted by a woman tearful and emotional, stressing her working-class credentials. She gave a preview of this approach in her Sky interview shortly before resigning last month. The narrative writes itself, doesn't it? Raised on a Stockport council estate, left school with no qualifications, pregnant at 16, grandmother at 37. It's a powerful story, one she's told before, one her admirers at the Labour conference repeated endlessly, and one that resonates with a particular segment of the party faithful who see in Rayner an authenticity they find lacking elsewhere in Labour's increasingly polished leadership. The question of a leadership challenge is a nuclear option everyone's whispering about but few dare say aloud. There's been speculation about her potentially joining forces with Andy Burnham, the Manchester mayor. They were pictured campaigning together, filmed singing karaoke at a previous conference, and Burnham represents a northern, working-class authenticity that could complement Rayner's brand perfectly. Those sources close to Rayner dismiss this as nonsense. They do confirm she will be making a comeback. It's not a question of if, but when and how. And if she needed a campaign manager, she wouldn't have to look far. Sam Terry, her boyfriend, was Jeremy Corbyn's leadership campaign director. He was also sacked as a shadow minister by Starmer, so there's no love lost there, which adds an absolutely delicious layer of personal grievance to any potential challenge. Terry now works for Henham Strategy, a lobby consultancy that pays rather well. One advisor reportedly banking £4,000 a month for just 15 hours of work. Many of Henham's clients fell under Rayner's brief when she ran housing, communities, and local government, though the firm stresses Tari worked on unrelated areas to avoid conflicts of interest. Still, Henham's website proudly states they leverage their team's contact to help clients engage and influence key decision-makers, which is lobbying in its purest, most unapologetic form. The financial pressure Rayner faces is real and substantial. Beyond the HMRC bill, she's lost the perks that came with being Deputy Prime Minister, the grace and favour accommodation, the donations for clothes from Labour peer Lord Ali, stays in his New York flat, free tickets to Brighton Pride worth £1,000. Now she's back to the standard MP allowance of up to £230 a night for London hotels when Parliament sits, which buys comfortable enough accommodation but is hardly Admiralty House. Yet despite these constraints, despite the scandal, despite the forced resignation, Angela Rayner isn't going anywhere. She's renovating her flat, receiving workmen, improving the property, making it properly hers. What we're witnessing isn't a politician in retreat. It's a politician in regroup. The graffiti calling her a tax evader has been scrubbed away. The stamp duty will be paid, the penalties absorbed, and when the time is right, when she's judged to move correctly, Angela Rayner will re-emerge. The tearful interview will be scheduled. The working-class credentials will be emphasized, the narrative of unfair treatment and disproportionate punishment will be carefully constructed, and a significant portion of the Labour Party will be ready to welcome her back with open arms. Whether that leads to a frontline ministerial position or something more ambitious, a direct challenge to Starmer's leadership, remains to be seen. What's certain is that British politics hasn't seen the loss of Angela Rayner, not by a long measure. She survived too much, fought too hard, and built too loyal a following to simply fade away over stamp duty. The lesser-spotted Angela Rayner won't remain lesser-spotted for much longer. She's in Hove, she's plotting, and if the reception she received at the Labour conference is anything to go by, her eventual return will be one of the most compelling political stories of the year. Make sure you're subscribed to UK Connors, because when Angela Rayner makes a move, and she absolutely will make her move, you'll want to be among the first to know exactly how it unfolds. This story is far from over, and we'll be tracking every development as it happens. Until next time.